This is one of the best ways to grow more food. Keep pests out of your garden and make everything taste better. And all you have to do is plant certain things next to each other. It's called companion planting. So let's get started with the basics. Plants like corn, squash, beans, and pumpkins need a lot of room to grow. So they're the perfect candidates for three sisters planting. This traditional Native American technique layers the essential nutrients that each plant needs to thrive right where it grows. The corn stalks provide support for the beans to climb. Beans fix nitrogen in the soil for both the corn and the squash. And the large squash leaves shade the ground, protecting the corn's shallow roots from drying out. On the other hand, smaller plants benefit from being planted near something tall to provide shade. When the heat of summer arrives, this helps them survive in hot, dry conditions. Tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, celery, and cabbage are just a few veggies that appreciate some shade during the hottest months of the year. Corn is also a great companion plant because it grows quickly and matures before many other crops, so it shades the garden bed for shorter season crops later on. Plant lettuce, onions, carrots, radishes, or beets between the rows of corn. In the meantime, if you want to increase your harvest of root vegetables like carrots, parsnips, beets, or radishes, try intercropping. Intercropping is simply growing two crops at the same time in the same area. Radishes grow quickly and reach maturity in about a month. So they're the perfect candidate to be intercropped with slower maturing crops like carrots. Not only does this save space, but it also keeps the soil occupied and productive, preventing weeds from taking over. Plus, radishes help aerate the soil, which benefits the longer maturing carrots. Intercropping is especially useful in raised beds because there's less room to spare. In fact, if you grow just one crop in a raised bed, you may notice that some parts of the bed aren't getting enough water, and those areas end up producing poorly. That won't happen when you have multiple crops filling the bed evenly. There's another amazing thing that happens when you intercrop radish with carrots. Radishes release a chemical into the soil that makes nearby carrots sweeter. If you grow carrots by themselves, they can be quite woody and bitter. But intercropping them with radishes improves their flavor. The same thing happens if you plant onions next to carrots. They become sweeter. Growing together also gives us pest protection. For example, planting onions and garlic repels carrot rust flies. These little pests burrow into young carrots and leave behind galls that make the roots unusable. But plant onions nearby, and the carrot rust flies will steer clear. Now let us talk about the three sisters planting, because it is not just about maximizing space and improving flavor. It's also about attracting beneficial insects. The corn attracts pollinators like bees and other insects that prey on pests. The beans attract a beetle called the Mexican bean beetle. These beetles eat the aphids that infest the corn. And the squash is attractive to ladybugs. Ladybugs are voracious predators of many common vegetable pests. Not only that, but they lay their eggs in the garden, leaving behind tiny ladybug larvae that continue the cycle of pest destruction. If you want even more pest control, try planting dill, fennel, or parsley anywhere in your garden. These herbs attract parasitic wasps. Parasitic wasps lay their eggs inside caterpillars and other pests, killing them from the inside out. You may have heard of companion planting to repel certain animals. Deer, rabbits, groundhogs, and other hungry critters will often steer clear of certain plants. Marigolds, for example, are known for repelling deer. Other plants like fennel, catnip, lavender, peppermint, and rosemary repel rabbits. We even have a whole video about the top 13 plants that repel deer. Check the link below for more details. If you've tried companion planting before, you might have noticed that not every combination works. For example, planting parsley next to tomatoes actually attracts more pests and diseases to the tomatoes. Rosemary planted near cabbage and broccoli stunted their growth. And planting Brussels sprouts next to thyme reduced their yield. Why? It all comes down to allelopathy. Allelopathy is when a plant releases a chemical into the soil that prevents certain other plants from growing. Some plants are allelopathic by design. Black walnut trees, for example, release a chemical called juglone that kills many common garden vegetables and herbs. But certain plants like tomatoes, eggplants, and potatoes are actually allelopathic helpers. When you plant these plants together, they increase the amount of beneficial microbes in the soil. These microbes improve the soil structure and make nutrients more available to plants, which can lead to bigger yields. So what should you plant together? Let's dive into our companion planting chart. Here, you'll find 64 of the most commonly grown vegetables, herbs, flowers, and even cover crops grouped into 21 beneficial pairings. The chart is broken down by category. First, we have crops that benefit from being planted near corn. Next, we have crops that prefer growing in the shade of taller plants like tomatoes and cabbage. Then, we have plant pairings based on similar growing requirements like full sun and well-draining soil. Finally, we have 3 plant pairings that offer pest protection and attract beneficials. Before you download the free printable, let us go through a few of these plant pairings to make sure you understand how to use the chart. Looking under corn, you'll see that beans and squash are listed as excellent companions. This means that you should plant them as close as possible, ideally touching each other. Meanwhile, Swiss chard and beets are listed as good companions. This means they'll grow well if planted within a few feet of corn. For example, you could plant a row of corn, then take the next 2 rows and plant Swiss chard and beets alternating. This way the corn provides shade for the chard and beets while they add diversity to your harvest. Next, let's look at tomato as the tall plant providing shade. Eggplants, peppers, celery, and cabbage are listed as excellent companions. This means you can plant them right next to a tomato plant. Meanwhile, basil and oregano are good companions, meaning they'll grow well within a few feet of a tomato. On the chart, we recommend planting basil right next to your tomato plants and oregano along a nearby pathway. That way the tomato appreciates the shade cast by the oregano. This arrangement keeps your basil close enough to the tomato to repel pests, but far enough away that it doesn't compete for water. Now let's look at a plant pairing based on growing preferences. Parsnips and carrots have similar growing requirements. They grow best in loose, fertile soil that drains well, and they prefer little shade during the hottest months of the year. And here you can see that radishes are also a good companion. Not only does it fit the description, but it's also noted that radishes will help sweeten the carrots. Now let's look at a plant pairing focused on pest protection. You can see that parsley, dill, and fennel are excellent companions for cabbage. This means that they not only grow well together, but they'll also help repel pests. Cabbage is susceptible to many pests like cabbage worms, cabbage loopers, and many different types of beetles. Parsley, dill, and fennel attract beneficial insects like ladybugs and parasitic wasps, which feed on these pests. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the chart, you'll find a section for cover crops. Cover crops are special crops like oats, peas, barley, and vetch that we plant in between or after the growing season to protect and improve the soil. Cover crops also build soil fertility and prevent erosion. Legumes like peas and vetches are an excellent choice because they fix nitrogen in the soil. Nitrogen is an essential nutrient for many vegetables, fruits, and grains. So when legumes decompose, they leave behind a rich source of nitrogen for future crops. Companion planting with cover crops is also helpful because it helps break up compacted soil. Tillage equipment and foot traffic compact the soil, making it difficult for water to soak in and for plant roots to grow. Cover crops like oats and rye grow long, arching stems that die and decompose, breaking up the soil and allowing water to infiltrate more easily. They also help hold the soil in place, reducing erosion caused by wind and rain. By planting cover crops in between or after your vegetables, you can keep the soil protected and productive year-round. And don't forget to check out our site for more companion planting charts and guides. We have charts for specific plants, companion planting for containers, and even companion planting for your herb garden. We also have guides to help you plan your own Three Sisters and Hugelkultur beds. Plus, we have step-by-step guides on how to grow your own compost, vermiculite, and even a guide on how to make your own beneficial insect hotel. And, finally, don't miss our new organic pest control kits. Click the link in the description below to visit our online store and start taking advantage of these powerful companion planting strategies.